Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Mark Waller. Welcome to Mastering Thought, where we take your questions every Thursday night at 6:15. And this is my venerable partner, Vanessa Moreno, who is the peer mentor of our online community, Thought Masters. And Thought Masters is about to get a facelift. I've got somebody working on the artwork and everything, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens. And our page that promotes Thought Masters is being reworked right now. So that's kind of fun. And do you have any comments about Thought Masters before we jump into the topic at hand?
Yeah, so Thought Masters is just a really great way to connect with different members in our community that are currently or have gone through um, just practicing a lot of the principles that we discuss here on our videos, live stream, or the other regular videos that you can catch anytime that you wish. And it's just a wonderful platform to be able to discuss with other people about like your experiences or maybe even difficulties that you experience with thought watching or any of the other concepts that we discuss.
So one of the things I wanted to mention for the first time ever this week, I posted the raw video of our video we recorded last week. That video is about to be posted on YouTube, but members of Thought Masters will be able to see the raw video along with the script that we use and the notes that we use. And it's just kind of a look behind the scenes and a preview of what we're doing for YouTube. And I hope you watch that video. I thought it was very interesting. So tonight, the topic at hand is who builds the road for our relationships.
I have an
and
idea.
and the answer is quite surprising, I think, to a lot of people because they don't realize that we're traveling down a road that has been built for us. And I'd like to explain how that happens because what we do is we travel down a predefined road that is constructed from early childhood development, and I want to explain how that happens because it's very interesting. So, had you ever thought of that before?
Somewhat, yeah. I think about my childhood patterns and how they come up in my just in my life in general. It's like a constant process for me.
Well, now you're kind of at a disadvantage because you have not been in a long-term relationship. You're a very
Mhm.
young woman, and
Yeah.
so hopefully some of this discussion will help you avoid some of the mistakes I made
Yeah.
growing
Yeah.
up.
Thank you.
So let me just explain just over kind of an overview of early childhood development. When a baby is born, for the first 3 years of life, they go through what psychologists call the attachment phase. And we have talked about attachment theory on this channel a number of times. We're not going to get into that tonight because that's really not, it's part of it. You know, it's kind of a foundational concept. Oop, I need a little sip of water here. But the real foundation that's laid for relationships starts at about 2 or 3 years of age. Now, one of the things about being that young is until we're about 2, we don't have autobiographical memory. So things that happen to us definitely impact us, but we really don't have a memory of it. But around my theory, this is my theory, somebody could argue with it, but around 3 years of age, we begin to have a sense of ourselves as an individual. And we become aware that there are other individuals. And we generally then at that point pick out a parent or caregiver to be the individual from which we learn what a relationship is all about. And so then from the age of about 3 until about 5 or 6, now this is not a hard and fast rule, but just about that age range, we create a roadmap of what a relationship means from those early childhood experiences with that individual. We pick one individual. And sometimes it's a little hard to figure out who that individual is. Sometimes it's extremely easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've actually heard of that before. Usually it's like both parents. It's never really been like, or not even parent, but like the one caregiver. Or I'm sorry. Usually it's like both caregivers have a play. I've never heard of the concept of it predominantly being one.
My
Makes
my
sense though.
experience of this is that we pick a parent, and this is really very easy to find out, because in the first session, I'll determine if they're lions or unicorns, and we don't have to talk about lions and unicorns tonight, but if they're a lion, I will ask them, when you were a little girl, a little boy, which parent did you feel like you didn't get enough attention from? You would have liked more approval. Maybe you felt a little rejected. And they'll immediately say, oh, dad, it was dad.
Yeah.
And so now this is not the pattern we make for relationships is not the attachment figure. The attachment figure is almost always the mother.
Oh.
So then at about 3 to 4 years of age, we pick that parent we're going to pattern our relationships after, and that may or may not be the mother. It could easily be the father. Or if they're a unicorn, I will ask them, when you were a little girl, who was the source of conflict in the family? And they'll say, oh, well, mom, who were you afraid of? Who didn't you want to get in trouble with? Mom. And so it's very simple to find out who this caregiver was, where the relationship pattern came from.
Okay.
I mean, it just literally leaps right out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean the other parent didn't have an influence.
Mm-hmm.
But the relationship dynamic comes from one parent or the other, or in more unusual circumstances, a caregiver. Could be an older brother, an older sister, an aunt, a grandmother, but generally it's a mother or father.
Mother, father. Okay. Someone that is in charge of raising. That would make more sense.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it is a caregiver for sure. But for some reason, and I haven't determined how this happens, as little kids, we pick one of those parents to be that person. Now, why is this important? Because the roadmap we develop from that person becomes the roadmap we use for our adult relationships.
Makes sense.
Now, why
And
is
if it's
that?
an issue, and it makes sense. Like if there's an issue present there, we will choose a partner that mimics those same attributes. But what we're really trying to do is figure it out with our parent that we have a problem with, not the actual partner.
Vanessa, you're going to have to speak up a little bit. I've got my gain turned all the way up, and just give me a little more boom.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I can yell a little bit more. Yeah. I was just kind of deep in thought when I said that. Sorry.
That's all right.
So am I better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. So it's just intriguing. Okay, I don't know if you heard what I had said though.
Go ahead and repeat it
Okay.
again.
Yeah. So it's really intriguing that with that parent that we have an issue with, we will eventually go on to be in a relationship with someone that mimics that parent. And then when we have issues that come up in that relationship, we target our partner, but what we're really upset about is maybe the relationship we had with our parent. And so sometimes relationships just feel so strained and just are chaotic and frustrating because we see that person as that parent that we had that issue with.
Part of the roadmap we create in a relationship is it has a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's create a scenario. Let's say that the person that you decided was going to play that role. And by the way, if you're listening to this, we got a number of people listening. If you have a question or comment, please put it in the comments, and we will respond to it. And even if it's off topic, that's okay. So imperfect parents have imperfect children and develop imperfect relationships. And so usually there is an issue or unfinished business as a result of that relationship. Now, it's very popular these days to call that trauma. Everybody's been traumatized, for heaven's sake. No, that's not the definition of trauma. What these are is these are patterns of relating that create emotional baggage.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
And it's not that you were traumatized. I mean, nobody is immune to this. Even in the best of families, everybody grows up with issues. Sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with the interaction. Maybe there was a death in the family. Maybe there was an illness. Maybe there was a child with a special need. It creates dynamics that people compensate for. And that compensation ends up being an emotional pattern they carry with them into adulthood. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say when you were a little girl, around 4 or 5 years of age, your parents got a divorce. And your father moved out. I know this didn't happen to you, so this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
So your father moved out, and your father at that point was the parent you had picked to model a relationship after. That had been predetermined. This happens all the time, by the way. This is not unusual. So you picked this parent, and he moved out. And now you're supposed to see him on weekends, but he never manages to show up. And when he does show up, it's inconsistent, and there are a lot of people that have gone through this, and on Saturday morning, they're sitting on the curb waiting for that parent to show up, and they never show up. It's devastating. All right, now let's speculate. Given that predicate that's been laid in childhood, this is what a relationship is. What might you expect to happen to this person when they grow up and get married to somebody?
Develop abandonment issues. Somebody who's very inconsistent with them, maybe like takes them on a date one time and then they don't take them on a date another. They're just like just low effort, no, not consistent. And if this is, yeah, just I can see this person just always striving to be with this person and this other person just not reciprocating it. Like it's just
That's
a recipe for disaster.
you explain that very well. Now, here's the dark twist to this.
Oh.
So we will recruit somebody to play the role of that parent.
Yikes.
So in our selection of partners, we're going to, you've got 10 men standing in a room, and you're going to pick a partner. You're going to pick the one who reminds you most of the father who didn't show up for visitation. How do you do that?
Ooh.
Okay, so the first thing a baby learns in the first year of life is how to read the mother's emotional state by looking at her gaze. So the first thing we do as human beings is we learn how to read a face. So we know, when I'm looking at this room full of 10 men, I know which one matches the emotional landscape of the pattern that I've got in my head. And this is done, now this is really weird, but this knowledge is done in the right orbital frontal cortex. Okay, why is that important? Because the right hemisphere is nonverbal.
Oh, okay.
So when I look at you, I can read your face, I can read your emotional landscape, but I can't put words to it. I can't talk about it. I have no idea how to express what I intuitively know about your emotional state.
Whoa, okay.
But if you match the issue I'm carrying around inside from my early childhood learning, I'm going to pick you for my partner because we both enjoy skiing and camping. No, that's not the reason.
So it has to do with the gaze.
So I'm going to read your face, and I'm going to read your emotional landscape, and I'm going to realize that, yes, you can play the role of dad that didn't show up.
Ouch.
And this is what we do. We do it over and over again.
And the gaze part, that's specifically with our mothers, or is that
Yes.
fathers?
It's
Okay,
no,
just
it's with
specific.
it's during the attachment phase. It's the developmental task for the baby in the first year is to read
Okay.
the mother's gaze.
Okay.
So the
So okay,
baby
so
can read the mother's emotional state by looking at her facial expressions.
right. So if the gaze from the mother was a very happy, cheerful one, I'm guessing baby's gonna choose someone, or not baby, the adult will choose someone who has that same countenance, so to speak.
Right. So,
Um,
it goes a little deeper than that, but essentially that's what you're saying. That's
Okay,
correct. Yeah.
okay. And so in addition to the gaze, what was the other thing that oh, the emotional landscape.
Right. So the gaze is a reflection of the internal emotional landscape.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we recruit our partners based on if your emotional landscape matches the deficit that I'm carrying around inside emotionally that I got from my father, then I'm going to pick
Oh,
you.
that hurts.
It's
Wow, okay.
it's scary. Okay, so now people will say, yeah, but in the first year of our marriage, we got along great, and then we didn't have any of these problems. Okay, now here's where the darkness comes in.
Oh no.
We not only recruit this person, but then we emotionally coach this person how to be the parent where we had the problem.
Ew. Okay. That
Now,
sucks.
how do we do that? By the way we respond defensively and emotionally in the relationship.
Mhm.
So what we're going to do is we're going to, in our interactions after 6 months, I don't like the way you brush your teeth, and we're going to have an argument about it. And the way I respond emotionally when I'm upset triggers you and pushes you towards the defense that looks like the parent where I had this deficit.
This sounds like self-sabotage.
Oh yeah,
We just don't know it until we're
no,
in it. And it's
no,
like, wait, oh, because and I'm saying self-sabotage because it's like we want to trigger this person to have that response. And once they do, it's like, aha, I got you. Which is a really crappy way to be in a relationship. But I mean, like you said, it's all nonverbal.
yeah.
I'm astonished. Wow. Okay.
So so then what we do once we've recruited them and trained them to be that parent, you know,
That sounds so
now we've
bad.
now we've got it all set up. So what's my goal? My goal from my early childhood, or your goal in this case with the example you use, is to find somebody who will not connect with you and try to get them to connect with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that becomes the defining structure of the relationship. And so you will find somebody who you will drive away from you in order to pursue them, to bring them back and get them to come close.
Gross. Okay. That sounds more okay. Relationships are already exhausting. That sounds even more exhausting. That and it's crazy that this happens subconsciously for so many of us.
Right.
Yikes.
And in a broader sense, this goes even beyond relationships, our early childhood emotional development determines a lot of our adult life.
Mm.
Like if you're the middle child, you become the middle manager. If you're from an alcoholic family and you were the rescuer, you become a nurse. If you had,
Oh
you know,
my.
if you had problems with your, father being too hard on you and being too authoritarian, you grow up to be a police officer or a correctional officer. And
Wow.
so
So
these
this even
patterns that we develop as children define the way we live our lives, the way we select our careers, everything.
there are a lot of implications that come from this. I've never explored the career one. That one's intriguing. Wow. The way I'm going to try and track everyone's career to their childhood pattern now. I'm going to be on the hunt for that.
Now, if you have a question, feel
Wow.
free to put it in the comments. So, so I'm not saying that, if you become a forester that you had a bad experience with a tree as a child. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not quite that simple. But understanding how adult life becomes a metaphor for childhood is, once you get it, it's easy to see.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
very easy to see. I mean, not too long ago, I had a man in my practice who was very analytical person, and he had an enormous amount of stress because he kept going into jobs that were extremely complicated. And his job was to pull everything together to try to solve this massive, complicated problem. Okay, well, when I looked at his childhood, I knew immediately where that came from. Because, his mother had had multiple husbands and boyfriends, and this his family as a child had become very fragmented and scattered around and unpredictable. And so he learned, because of his personality and his gifts, his intellectual gifts, to try to grapple with this with his mind, to try to put it all back together. And that became the metaphor for his career.
Wow. Ouch.
Now, does it sound like I'm reaching too far here?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm even like reflecting for my own life, but like it's I think this is a good point of reflection for a lot of us and those that are watching,
Mm-hmm.
of what did my childhood look like and what job am I in? And maybe this might not apply to everyone, but I feel like for the most part it does. And even when we think it doesn't relate, maybe there's just something we're not seeing. So I like that we're exploring this.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes it's not easy for the person. It's easy for me to see it because I'm used to seeing it.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
what's interesting is, in a therapeutic session, people will just blurt it out and tell you where it comes from and what it is, and they don't even know they're doing it.
Mm.
You'll say, well, tell me about your childhood, and they'll say, well, my house, living in my house with my father, he was very restrictive, and it was like living in a prison. Guess where he works?
The CEO.
Yeah, correctional officer. I mean, this is
Crazy.
just, it's
Oh
just,
man.
it's as plain as the nose on your face.
Yeah.
And so I can remember
Wow.
many years ago, when I was first really understanding this. I had a couple, and we're doing our first interview and everything, and uh, the wife was telling me when she was a little girl, her mother used to go out to the mulberry bush and cut a switch off the tree and beat her with a switch from the tree.
Mm.
And I turned to the man and I said, "And what were you beaten with?" I had no idea what was going on with him at all. He said, "Oh, an extension cord."
Wow. Oh, so whoa. Oh, they didn't even realize. I'm guessing they never discussed that.
No, no. So here they
Oh.
were, and I just know,
Oh.
and because the other thing that this leads into is our level of pain from our childhood experiences dictates the level of pain of the person we recruit.
Oh, that's intense.
So let's say you are, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 5. You're going to go out and find somebody who's a 5. And so when I'm interviewing this woman, I know if she was beaten, the chances are really good he was beaten as well. And I just took a chance. And I turned to him and said, "Well, what were you beaten with?" I just made the assumption he was beaten because she was. He says, "Oh, yeah, with an extension cord." And it was like, psh, went right over his head. They didn't even realize what had just happened.
Wow. Insane.
And so the point behind this discussion is, you know, we have this dramatic, not abusive necessarily, but dramatic template that we create from our early childhood emotional experiences, and we are doomed as human beings not to keep repeating that. Freud called it ritualistic reenactment or repetition compulsion, but it's even bigger than he said. Because this thing operates in the background and it controls our lives, and we go out and we recreate these patterns over and over again because we're trying to fix the problem, the deficit that we experienced as children. And so we go out into our adult world and we organize our lives around solving the problem we brought with us from childhood without realizing that we don't have to do that at all.
Wow. I feel like this goes back to what we were discussing in our other live stream about like just lacking that presence, lacking. I mean, and when you can't, yeah, there's so much that's happening unconsciously that completely goes over our heads.
And let me make a comment about unconsciously. It's only unconscious because it's repeated itself and been so obvious for so long, we just deleted it from our awareness.
That's a good way to put it. We delete it. Yeah.
So
It's
what,
just how we are.
it's like the paint on the wall. Gosh, it's, my walls are gray. Well, I don't, every time I walk in the room, I don't say, oh, gray walls. I've deleted it from my awareness. It's just there all the time, so I don't even notice it.
Pay
Same
attention
thing
to it.
here.
Yikes.
Same
Okay.
thing here.
And I feel like it's worthy of mentioning like how a lot of times we will see our friends or loved ones or even ourselves wondering like why is this person choosing the same person again and again? They know they're going to get hurt,
That's
but
right.
it's obvious to us as the outsider, but when that person, if you're that person or we have that loved one that's a person, that's the person in that relationship, they cannot see it. Like you
Right.
just said, like you just delete everything. It's, oh, but he's cute and he does this and he's a bad boy and he's this. Yeah, but he's doesn't treat you well, honey. Like we don't really see it that far. It's just
Uh-huh.
wow. It's just okay. Yeah. There's a lot there. That's yeah.
So I had a man in my practice not too long ago who had a spending problem. And, and it was so weird because the spending problem was he would go into the dollar store and buy little tchotchke stuff, just garbage. And he couldn't understand why he was doing this, but he just had this compulsion to do this. Well, it turned out when he was a little boy, his father was, disciplined him, was very abusive, and to the point of being abusive. And then he would later feel guilty, and then he would take his little boy out and buy him a treat.
Oh no. Ugh.
And so when I heard this, I reflected this back to him, and I said, "What you're doing is you're trying to make yourself feel better, and it's a reenactment of what happened when you were a child." And when I repeated it back to him and I reflected it to him, he was stunned.
Yeah.
He was just stunned. He had never connected the dots between those two things at all.
Poor baby.
And so I don't blame people for not seeing this because
Right.
it's hiding in plain sight. And how do you know how to look? You really need an
Right.
outsider's perspective
Yeah.
to be able to see it. But for relationships, this is critical because what we do is we create a problem when we're children, and then we set up our adult relationships to try to solve the problem we brought with us from childhood.
Hmm.
And we don't know it.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, maybe it's too much. Sorry.
No, I love it. It's just it's got me pondering about a lot and how, like you said, if there's not an outside source, how would we know? And
Right,
it kills me when I see folks that are suffering in their relationships and you want so badly to just give them those nuggets of wisdom, but sometimes even the outside source that wants to help them can't because that person is just set in their ways, or they
right.
don't think there's anything wrong. I just have bad luck, or men just suck, or women just suck, and it goes beyond that. So
Or they say that's
it
just the way I am.
yes, that's the more unfortunate response. I don't like that response, but yeah,
I hope you're
sadly.
enjoying this conversation. If you're listening to us live and you have a question, put it in the comments and we'll stop and we'll address it. If you're listening to the recording, please put a comment. And a lot of the long form video we do is based on the questions and comments we get. So we love your input.
Yeah.
So these patterns are laid down in the limbic system, which is the
Mhm.
emotional brain that is wired up by the time we're about 5 or 6 years of age. And because we live on autopilot for most of our lives, the limbic system is autopilot. So we just keep repeating these patterns over and over again without realizing it.
I didn't think about that. The limbic system is our autopilot.
Yeah. Well, the limbic system is based in survival. The
Yeah,
whole lower part of the brain is all about survival.
correct.
The limbic system is fight or flight, anger, fear. It's the part of the brain we share with other animals. So it is all about survival. And all emotions come from the limbic system. So the limbic system is dictating a lot of what goes on in our lives.
Ouch. Well, when you come to think of it, it's like sometimes we it's like you wonder like why your partner has these annoying habits, or just habits that you wonder like why are you like this? And it's really their 5-year-old that's reenacting childhood.
That's right.
And oh, I mean there can be an even form of, I mean now I there's some compassion and tenderness to be had there of they don't know what they don't know. My partner, like let's say if someone's struggling in their relationship,
Right.
like there can be that tenderness of okay, where is this coming from? I want to know more.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great takeaway of you you so badly want this relationship to work. And if two partners have this awareness of, okay, our limbic systems are showing up right now, like how much more powerful can a relationship be at that
Not
point?
much.
I think that just, yeah.
And see what you're saying is so wise because when you awaken, and we talk a lot about awakening on this channel, when you awaken to the fact that this person is struggling with their own issues and what they're doing is not personal.
Yeah.
And that what that does is, first of all, it helps you manage your own defensiveness. But on the other hand, it makes you feel compassion for this person who's just completely stuck in their own stuff and has no idea how to get themselves unstuck at all. And they're constantly trying to rationalize their behavior and explain it. And they don't have any idea what's motivating them at all. None.
Right.
Because we live in a culture that puts no premium on self-awareness whatsoever. So how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. I feel like in our culture too, there's just a lot of blaming.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I can't tell you how often like oh well when I was on Instagram, I've taken a break because I heard way too much stuff. But there's always that idea of like you do you girl, you do you man, like women are women these days or men these days. And it's like, okay, but why is that the case then? That
Hmm.
this points to a larger issue. We're not just this way. I mean, it points back to something that we're unconscious of, or something that we've just deleted from our brains.
Right.
So there's a lot to talk about here, and I really like where this conversation is going, because it's I think it just brings to light what so many of us want to talk about, but we just
Hmm.
don't have the words, we don't have the awareness, or we don't have
Right.
the know of, okay, well, what is this? And so um if anybody out there is just experiencing just this constant frustration of like, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with my partner,
Hmm.
I feel like this video at least unpacks like the first step to understanding
Well,
that.
if you're listening to this and you want to know what patterns you're struggling with, just reach out to me, because in 2 or 3 sentences I can pick it out. I do this work all day long. I've done it for 30 years. I've seen 5,000 people. I know how this works only because I've had so much experience with it. And if you're struggling and you want to take responsibility for your life and you want to see what this pattern is that keeps repeating over and over, and you don't want to blame anybody else and you want to be fulfilled, reach out. We'll exchange an email or two and we'll solve it. I'll show you what it is. It's right there. We have a few more minutes, so if you are listening to this and you have a comment or a question, feel free to put it in the comments, and we'll swivel around and we'll address it. I'm trying to think as we're sitting there some other examples of how stark and easy this is to imagine, but and when I reflected back to people, they're always able to see it right away. It's like, oh my God, I had no idea this was happening.
Yeah.
But you know, from their perspective, you can understand why they wouldn't be able to see it for themselves.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I've got a client who's a long haul truck driver. He's a unicorn. He hates conflict. Came from a very abusive environment. Even being in a relationship is threatening to him. So he's on the road.
Hmm.
Because he learned as a little boy when the fighting started in the home, he had to get out. He would sleep outside.
Ouch. And is this client married?
Yeah, he was married.
No.
And of course, his
Okay.
wife is, a lion, and she's beside
Right.
herself because she wants to spend time with him and he won't show up.
Oh,
And of course, her interpretation is he must not love me.
wow. How we can misconstrue our partner's intentions, feelings, emotions.
Right,
Wow. Just because of what we think is going on. And obviously, we can try to have the most genuine conversation with our partner as much as possible. But if you don't have this type of vocabulary to talk about like
right.
what's really going on, you're just gonna go in circles. Like, just the lion's always chasing the unicorn, unicorn's always hiding. And it sucks because it's a dynamic that will keep replaying itself.
Well, what's really tragic about it is, people know what they're doing is unproductive. They know there's something wrong. They want to change their behavior. They're desperate to change their behavior. And they swear that they will and they'll do better and they'll work harder. But we have this mechanism inside of us that's desperate to survive something from our childhood that's no longer active in our lives. But we're still using the protocol that we learned as little children, and it's automatic. It's overwhelming. And people will say, well, how come he does that? He knows it's wrong. You know, he's not in charge. It's that little boy inside that's terrified, that's been activated and been triggered. And, people don't understand how powerful that is. It's overwhelming. It's powerful.
Yeah,
It's overwhelming.
absolutely.
Anything in closing, Vanessa? Any final questions or comments?
I'm just grateful you brought this up, because once again, I'm just left pondering. And how so often we like I mentioned earlier, we just misconstrue the intentions of our partners.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I have not been in a long-term relationship since high school, which was puppy love. But this is good for me in my time of singleness to really reflect and just things to think about, like what is happening unconsciously, so that whenever it comes time that I do have a partner, that I don't misconstrue intentions or
Right.
um, emotions or things that are said, and that I would just take the time to really listen, take the
Mm-hmm.
time to not just listen to what they're saying about the present, but to listen about their past too, and how that's formed their present. Because there's a lot of nuggets there, and um, I think bottom line is really, like, if you're single, it's really being with somebody that is willing to do the work. But if you're already in the relationship, it's learning how to get outside of yourself and to really see your
Uh-huh.
relationship and to see yourself from a new perspective, and encourage your partner to see that as well. So I feel like there's hope for our singles, and there's also hope for our married folks that
Mm-hmm.
are single, obviously, that are seeking healthy relationships, and then for our married folks, those that are just seeking to strengthen relationships and to really see what more they can get out of this marriage, because marriage shouldn't just be about you just have wife, kids, and the house. Like, no, it's there's more to that. There's beauty in being able to construct something together, and understanding each other on a very spiritual, psychological level, and that nobody else understands but you two. So
One
I'm
final
happy we
thought
talked about
about
this
this.
today.
I love what you're saying. It makes so much sense. One final thought about it is addressing this is healing, and that is the purpose of a relationship. Is so these things will come up, and so you will look at them and see where they're actually coming from, so you can be free of them.
Right.
And when you do that, you can have a relationship far and above what you wanted all along, because there's a depth of understanding and compassion that really breeds true intimacy in a relationship.
Beautifully said.
All right, so that's it for tonight. Join us again next Thursday at 6:15. Well, we will go where no one has gone before.
Love that. That sounds
and
pretty epic.
and check out Thought Masters. The link will be down below. We'd love to have you join us online and explore and join us in this exploration of this and the healing journey that we're all on. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.